Chrissy, Teigen, Intimate Partner Primary Source and Indirect Control. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. To enable you to understand more about narcissism and our relationship with our victims, the appliances, I categorize them into a hierarchy, which is explained in detail in my excellent book, Fuel. You ought to read that if you are serious about understanding narcissism. You can find it on Amazon, and you can also find it in the Knowledge Vault. I explain that appliances are categorized into tertiary, secondary, and primary sources. Where a primary source exists, and they usually do, especially for lesser and mid-range narcissists, usually being intimate partner primary sources, though sometimes non-intimate partner primary sources, they are the main provider. This is the person that has been determined subconsciously as the easiest person to control, that provides the most fuel, and that is able to cater to the most character traits and residual benefits. Most of the time, this will be the spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, cohab of the narcissist. This individual is brought under control, typically through love bombing and experiencing a golden period, but for some, it is a bronze period. The narcissist brings this person under control, and does so directly through the repeated hoovering of seduction. The dynamic thereafter is of an embedded golden period before it moves to the sustained devaluation, which is punctuated by respite periods. And throughout that period of time, the narcissist must always ensure that the intimate partner primary source, whenever they are on the radar, is kept under control, or if not, is brought back under control. The narcissist has three ways of doing this: directly, indirectly, and through withdrawal. Withdrawal, it can either be active, the narcissist walks away from the victim, puts the phone down on them, ignores the text message, or passive withdrawal, where the narcissist is not interacting directly already with the victim and stays in that position of not interacting with them. So, for instance, the narcissist happens to think about the victim, but then doesn't act upon it directly or indirectly and just jettisons the thought of them, thus staying in a position of withdrawal. If you'd like to understand more about the three assertions of control, to really go into the detail of it all, then obtain the three assertions of control from the Knowledge Vault. The intimate partner primary source is naturally the most important person in the fuel matrix, and therefore they are the individual over whom particular control is asserted, and invariably it is the intimate partner primary source who suffers the worst abuse. That individual is subjected to a range of direct controls, being insulted, possibly physical violence, being given plenty of sex, being supposedly supported, being supposedly listened to, subjected to circular conversations, accusations out of nowhere, false accusations, triangulation with other people, events, and objects, and so forth. But also, that intimate partner primary source will find themselves subjected to indirect control. Sometimes the indirect control occurs when the intimate partner primary source isn't physically proximate to the narcissist. So an example of that might be, for instance, let us say the intimate partner primary source has had enough of being abused and leaves the family home. They get in the car and they drive off. They switch their phone off. The narcissist attempts to assert control directly by ringing them, but finds themselves repeatedly wounded in a minor way because the narcissist fails to answer the telephone. They don't have control over the intimate partner primary source, and their narcissism demands that this occurs. They therefore then call somebody else, perhaps a friend or a relative, and complain about the behaviour of that intimate partner primary source victim. Mum, Louise has just gone off in a complete huff. I don't know what was wrong. We were just sat in the living room, and then she started accusing me of having an affair. And then before I know it, as I protest my innocence, she storms off and drives off. I'm worried that she might do something stupid. Much of that will, of course, be a revision of history, because Louise drove off as a consequence of the way that the narcissist was treating her. But the narcissism compels that particular narcissist to tell a revised story to his mother. His mother then responds sympathetically, perhaps talking about how she sees Louise as somewhat unbalanced, or that she's rather capricious. That response enables that victim's tormentor, the narcissist, to have a subconscious sense of control, because his mother agrees with him that Louise's conduct is not acceptable. He's not asserting any control actually over Louise, but the fact that he has smeared her to his mother, thus triangulating, and his mother has responded, agreeing with him that Louise is unbalanced and difficult, means that subconsciously he now has control over her, even though he's not actually proximate to her, that he hasn't spoken to her, that he's not with her. And thus, the indirect assertion of control has done its job. But the indirect assertion of control can also occur where the narcissist is actually physically proximate to the intimate partner primary source. And we're going to see a short video example of that involving the moon-faced narcissist, Chrissy Teigen, the lady who is unable to understand how her surname ought to be pronounced, thus she gets it said 3 different ways by your glorious narrator. We're going to see a very short piece of footage which shows her and her husband on the red carpet as they're being photographed. Here comes the footage.
How do I hug an armless?
You hold hands.
There we go. That's beautiful. Excellent.
Guys, right here. All right, cool. And then Chrissy, I'll have you
Aspetta, no.
How do I hug an armless?
You hold hands.
There we go. That's beautiful. Excellent.
Guys, right here. All right, cool. And then Chrissy, I'll have you
Aspetta, no.
Accordingly, what have you seen? The narcissist is on the red carpet with the intimate partner primary source. Off camera, there are tertiary sources, the press pack. Remember, the narcissist's need for control is near constant. When they're conscious, it's now, 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 moment to moment to moment to moment. Chrissy Teigen seeks to assert control over her husband, and she does so by trying to take hold of him, the physical assertion of control. However, she finds that she can't take hold of his hand because he's wearing a coat over himself, which his arms aren't in. So she ends up grabbing an empty arm of his coat. That means that she's not been able to successfully assert control, and that causes wounding. In the circumstances, she doesn't immediately erupt by punching him in the side of the head and saying, "Give me your hand, motherfucker." But instead, the satellite dish-faced one turns to the indirect assertion of control as she calls out to the press pack, "How am I able to get hold of an arm that, in essence, isn't there? What am I to do?" In that instance, her narcissism led her to indirectly assert control over John Legend by triangulating him with the press pack by asking them, what should she do? She asks, "How do I hold an armless arm?" Which, of course, doesn't quite make sense, but everybody understands what she's driving at. She gets a response from the press pack, "You should just hold hands," which, of course, enables her to know that the press pack are under control because they're responding to her and providing her with fuel, but also enables her to have a subconscious sense of control over the intimate partner primary source because the press pack have acknowledged that she's having difficulty holding hands with him and suggests a way of dealing with that. To the untrained eye, nobody would suspect that this was the interaction between a narcissist and her victim. They would just think, oh, it's a bit of a problem on the red carpet. But remember, when a narcissist is dealing with other people, their narcissism isn't suspended. They don't behave as a part-time narcissist. The narcissism is always functioning. And every single interaction that Chrissy Teigen has with the press pack, with John Legend, with whoever it is that she's interacting with, is governed by her narcissism. And therefore, what then happens is that it must achieve control, draw fuel, possibly gain character traits and residual benefits. Thus, when she can't control him directly physically, she's wounded, her narcissism shifts to the indirect assertion of control, so she basically asks for help. She expresses her exasperation, and therefore the press pack respond. They show they're under control, they give her a subconscious sense of control over Legend, and he then proffers his hand to her, demonstrating that he is also, in the next moment, under control. When the press pack responds saying you should hold hands, notice that Chrissy Teigen laughs. It's not a particularly amusing observation, and her laugh is hollow and forced, demonstrating that there's no actual emotional empathy behind it, that it is manufactured. And then she goes into model face. Immediately, the false laugh disappears, it evaporates in an instant, and she's there posing, mugging for the camera, drinking in the fuel being provided by the press pack. It's a short interaction, but it is an excellent opportunity to see, in action, how a narcissist indirectly asserts control over a proximate, intimate partner primary source. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.